With rants and raves, you'll be okay. And today is your lucky day. It is rants and raves with Gary K.
Good morning, everyone. This is Gary K, and you are watching a special video edition of my Rants and Raves podcast. And I have an old friend of mine, Chas Thornhill, with me. Hey, Chaz, how are you?
Doing great, Gary. How are you?
Some 15 years ago or more, we worked together at AMX. And Chaz is doing something different for the last 3 years. He and his co-founder partner, Seng, founded a company called Ion Visual Solutions. So Chaz, tell us what Ion Visual Solutions does.
Well, primarily we're an installation company. We specialize in installing large format video displays, video experiences. That would be LED. We've done some LCD, not much. And basically that's all we do. We work for manufacturers, we work for integrators, and we handle the nasty part of a lot of these projects for those guys, which is installing LED displays and making those things look fabulous.
There's kind of an art and a science to installing an LED, Jay. Would you not agree? It's not just simply mounting it. There's a lot more to it because there's a lot of issues with regard to LED that a lot of other displays don't have. Obviously alignment, colorimetry, things like that. So isn't it a kind of a combination of art and science, Jay?
It sure is. Yeah. I mean, there's, the wall, it's never perfect, right? So it's an art just to trying to get the wall mount in there perfectly flat and plumb, because essentially, that's the base for your final product, right? And then, the LEDs and the cabinets and stuff goes in, and you just got to get it as flat, as perfect as possible.
And I think most people in the industry nowadays would agree that LED is the future display technology. It's replacing a lot of other display technologies. When you get into large form factor flat panels, everyone's going to LED. When you need brighter than what we have for projectors, everyone's going to LED. When you need to go outside, everyone's going to LED. When you need to get really big, everyone's going to LED. Speaking of big, I'll put a link in for a casino that you did, I believe, in Oklahoma. And there's kind of a unique story behind that, because they had budgeted for something like 5 people over 2.5, 3 weeks, but you did it in 9 days, Chaz.
Yeah, we did with 3 people. We did it in 9 days, start to finish. We were working alongside Samsung on that project, and they were very happy with it. The casino was thrilled with it. So we didn't rush it from our standpoint. We just worked it steady, and when the installation goes in well, you don't have a lot of alignment and fine tuning work to do in the end. So typically we focus more on the mount and making the mount perfect, and then once we start hanging panels, it can actually go pretty quick.
Yeah, and that mounting, you worked, I think you partnered, if I recall, with Premier on that project. The interesting thing about this is, unlike other display technologies, they're not, LEDs really not plug and play. It does have the capability of replacing a lot of the other display technologies that we have right now. But Jay, there's some intricacies to LED that other technologies just don't have. Has there ever been a case, Jay, where you've done an install and you're about halfway through and realize you have to start over, or that there's something off that you can't figure out? And how do you deal with that?
Well, you just got to step back and, just figure out what just happened, and, just go move on and correct the issue.
What's the worst case scenario, Chaz? Like, what's your nightmare, or have you had your nightmare already?
Well, we had a nightmare in Orlando installing a wall for an integrator. This wall was, 27 columns wide, wow. 5 rows high. So it's a big wall, approaching 50 feet wide. And the wall was utilizing, Samsung LED and Samsung mounts. Mm-hmm. And, Samsung has some very strict standards on how the wall has to be prepared ahead of time to use their mounts. and this wall was not done that way. It had a severe bow in the wall, and of course we didn't know this until we got down there. We were told, yeah, the wall's done, it's flat, it's great. You know, GCs a lot of times are really happy with their own work, and so we get down there to install the wall, and essentially we had a really hard time even getting the cabinets in. We risked damaging a lot of the LED modules. We didn't, but you know, there was a severe risk of that because of the way the wall was shaped. And to make matters worse, it was for a restaurant that had already promoted on TV this wall was going in, and so we had to install it. They would not let us wait until the GC actually corrected the problem. So they insisted that we go ahead with the installation, which we did. They got through their opening weekend, and then we sent a crew back down to take down the entire wall, right down to the bare wood. The GC straightened the wall, and then we reinstalled the wall.
Wow.
Again, that wasn't our fault necessarily, you know, because we were hired to install it. The integrator we were working for said, go ahead and put it up. We'll pay you to take it down and put it back up again once the wall is straight. And so that's what we did. But it was, potentially a nightmare. I mean, as the panels heated up, the LED modules were actually popping out of the cabinets.
From the pressure of the,
right.
of
the thermal expansion, thermal expansion. A lot of people don't realize that as those things get hot, the LED modules expand.
Yeah.
And if you don't account for that, over time, you're going to have problems.
And so, Jay, you're kind of a problem company. You're solving problems for companies. I mean, obviously, you knew this was going to be a problem before you did it. And so, a lot of cases, it seems to me that companies should engage with you earlier on in the project so that you can help identify these potential problems. Jay, would you agree?
I would agree. Yes. I mean, if you want LED done right, you got to get the LED guys in.
Yeah.
So, we know the ins and outs of LED, and we usually like to assist, integrators and stuff into, getting that LED installed right the first time around.
Yeah. So Ion Visual Solutions is at ion-visual.com, ion-visual.com. I'll put a link in the description of this video cast. Hey, Chaz, we've talked about casino install. We've talked about a restaurant install. What about the big monument signage that's outside, that you see in New York City and you see in Las Vegas, and now you see other cities putting up? Do you do stuff like that as well?
Yeah, we actually have a contract on the books right now to install a large outdoor display at the new PGA headquarters in Frisco, Texas. As far as the monument signs that are installed on the outside of buildings in New York, traditionally, those are done by, union labor and so forth and so on. And
yeah.
we do a lot of work in New York, but primarily it's indoor work. And we've done some outdoor monument sized displays indoors. We just did a project for Samsung at their experience center in the meatpacking district in New York City. It's an indoor display, but it's 3 stories tall and it's about 40 feet wide. And that's a 1.2 millimeter LED display. And I think it's got to be, I don't know for sure, but it has to be the largest 1.2 millimeter display ever installed. It's massive. It amounts to 6 4K displays. So you've got a 4K displays in an array of 2x3 essentially.
Yeah.
And it's just massive.
Yeah, I've heard about that. We actually were there for the opening of that. I wasn't there, but a couple of our reporters were there for the opening of that. It was very impressive. Well, I gotta ask you, Chaz, this question. If you were putting an LED in your house, let's say you were going to build your own home theater and you had to put an LED in your house, what would you put in your house?
Oh, as far as what brand?
Yeah, which one? I mean, you're working with all of them. If I want to put an LED in my house, what would I put in there? Would I use the wall from Samsung? Would I use the crystal LED? What would you put in?
Well, I mean, we're in a partnership with Samsung. We do a lot of installation work directly for Samsung. So I've seen more Samsung than anything else. But I tell you, if I had the money, and it would take a lot of it, but if I had the money, the wall, the 0.8 millimeter wall product is the best looking LED I have ever seen.
Yeah, and it is going into movie theaters. There's some test exhibition houses where they're running movies on it to see if it's a potential replacement. Whenever we get to go back to movie theaters, it's been a while. That's my favorite weekend thing. In fact, when I lived in Texas, back when you and I worked together, every weekend I would go to that giant theater up there. I forget what that area is called, but it's kind of close to Renner Road, towards the airport. And I used to watch movies there every weekend because y'all had some of the best large screen theaters in the country. And I think the first stadium seating in the country. So I suspect when things get back to normal, we'll start seeing some LEDs being installed, and that provides a great opportunity. Look, Ion Visual Solutions, eventually, here's the truth. Eventually you're going to be installing LEDs. And this is a great opportunity for not only for you to contract a company that knows what they're doing, but learn from them as well. So it's ion-visualsolutions.com. Chas Thornhill, Charles Thornhill, Chaz. I call him Chaz. Do you go by Chaz still, Chaz? I
do. Yeah. My email signature says Charles, but yeah.
That sounds too official for you.
It does, doesn't it?
And Jay, it's great to meet you. Congratulations on your success. I know you've got some big growth plans. You've been growing very rapidly. And I encourage you to connect with them on LinkedIn. I'll put that in the description of the podcast, the video cast that we're doing here today. And of course, everyone have a great end of the year as we end the year. And you'll hopefully watch this in the new 2021, which will be a better year than 2020. Chaz, thank you very much. Jay, it's great to meet you.
Thank you, Gary.
Great
Appreciate
to meet
it.
you.
rAVe Radio with rAVe.